Hello and welcome. I'm Marletha Williams, Supply Diversity Program Manager for the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System located in Washington, D.C., and your moderator today. Thank you for joining us and welcome to Meet the Project Manager and Contract Representatives for Construction Services. The purpose of this webcast is to provide you access, opportunity, and engagement with the Federal Reserve. While last year was an incredibly challenging year, the Federal Reserve remained committed to helping businesses emerge from the pandemic. We look for partners like you to help provide goods and services to support our mission. We have created a very exciting program today. Today's agenda highlights our facility services design and construction, upcoming procurement, the General Contractor Basic Ordering Agreement, as we call it at the board, the GC BOA. And for those of you who are not familiar with a BOA, it's very similar to the federal government's IDIQ. We have an amazing panel today, and they will provide you with key and mandatory requirements regarding the construction services solicitation, as well as provide an overview on responding to the board solicitation offer and award. But before I introduce the panel, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping rules. If you are watching on your cell phone, make sure you have it horizontal. And please submit your questions in the chat box. We will answer questions at the end of the presentation. So at this time, I would like to introduce the panel. First, we have Sona Parikh, Manager of Construction. Welcome, Sona, and share with the audience your role in the construction services acquisition.
I'm with the construction management team. I work for Design and Construction Group. We oversee construction projects at the board, including design, and I will be acting as the core for this contract.
Wonderful. And next we have Kristen Gundy, Manager of Contracts, and she will share with you her role as well. Kristen, welcome.
Thanks, Marletha. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kristen Gandhi. I'm a manager of one of the operations teams in our procurement section at the board, and I'll be working with Jerome Smith, who you'll meet in a moment. Jerome will be handling this solicitation on behalf of board procurement.
Well, last but not least, Kristen's spoiler alert, last but not least, we do have Jerome Smith, our very own superstar and contract specialist. Some of you may be familiar with Jerome. He's the face at many small business outreach events, ensuring that you have access, opportunity, and engagement with the board regarding its upcoming procurement opportunities. Welcome, Jerome, and share with the audience your role in the project.
Well, hello, everyone, and thank you for joining. I'm the contract specialist on this particular solicitation. I'll be your direct contact throughout the process.
Thank you, Jerome. So before we get into the presentation, let me just revisit the housekeeping rules. For those of you who have just joined us, welcome. And if you are watching via cell phone, please make sure your phones are horizontal. And also, if you would like to present questions throughout, put your questions in the chat box and we will answer those questions at the end of the presentation. So without further ado, I would like to bring in Sonal. Sonal, walk the audience through the key and mandatory requirements for the construction services solicitation.
Thank you for the opportunity, Marletha, and I'll be happy to introduce this solicitation. Hello. Let's go ahead and get started. Next slide, please. Just to give an overview of the board, we have 4 owned buildings in the DC area, along with some lease space. All of it adds up to over 1 million square feet of office space. This requirement for the solicitation is for general construction services. We have projects that range from carpet replacements, office reconfigurations, HVAC rehabs, painting, security projects, and many, many more. So this is a broad gamut of any type of a construction project that a commercial agency or federal agency would have. Next slide, please. The goal is to issue the solicitation third quarter of this year and award in January of 2022. The base year will be for 2022 from January to December. We've included 4 option years, which would be executed at the government's discretion. We anticipate up to 10 total awards, and we anticipate a mix of small and large businesses as far as the awards go. There is no guarantee of minimum option years as far as award for the options. Next slide, please. There are some mandatory requirements that are detailed in the solicitation. Please pay close attention to them once you receive the solicitation. In general, you'll find this information in section C 2.9 as noted below in the bottom of the screen. Basically, we're looking for the GC to be established in the DC metro area and also have a minimum and be established for a minimum 5 years. We are looking for experience of having similar type contracts, a BOA or IDIQ of similar scale of having the contract for a minimum of 3 years and compete a minimum of 2 projects or complete a minimum of 2 projects under that BOA. Preferably 2 projects done simultaneously, and then the overall aggregate of minimum of $200,000 under that BOA. There's also a set of minimum requirements for the project manager and the superintendent. Next slide, please. The project manager experience, we're looking for someone that's seasoned, that understands what the BOA function, how a BOA would function, and a minimum 5 years of project management experience. Similar with the superintendent, we're looking for 10 years minimum experience and completion of 3 projects under a BOA or similar contract. Please make a note that for a federal agency and key personnel will undergo background checks and to receive PID badging to access the board facilities. Next page, next slide, please. Under the BOA, we will have individual task orders issued, and there's no, of course, guarantee of awards as far as guarantee awards for the contracts, but they will be bid competitively at the board's discretion. We are considering up to $150,000 estimated project cost to be awarded without competition. And of course, we're not guaranteeing minimum award to any of the BOA holders. Each task order will be a specific contract or mod, and it will have its own performance, scope, schedule, and experience requirements depending on the need for the project. The price will be firm fixed price, and the task order will include each price proposal will be requested to have subcontractor backup that details the labor and material costs. All of those will be spelled out later in the section that Kristen's going to provide an overview of. Next slide, please. I wanted to give you an overview of just some of the trades that could possibly be provided with the service. That would include demolition, concrete work, security systems, fire protection, furnishings, of course, the typical HVAC, electrical elements of a project. It's just a wide gamut of anything that we would need in a federally owned facility. So I'll answer questions at the end as Marletha outlined, and I'm going to turn it back to you, Marletha.
Thank you, Sonal. That was very, very informative. One of the things that, as I mentioned earlier, the purpose of this webcast was to make sure you have access, opportunity, and engagement with the Federal Reserve. We want to collaborate with you. So we are providing you these key and mandatory requirements to help you be successful when you bid on our solicitation. And as Sonal said, she pointed out a few key highlights in the solicitation regarding key personnel, section C 2.9. Those are some things you really, really want to pay closely attention to. And so we're going to move right into learning how to respond to the board's solicitation, offer, and award. And oftentimes, as you know, when you get a solicitation, it can be somewhat overwhelming. So Kristen will actually walk you through an overview. She will go through the ABCs of the solicitation. So Kristen, take it away.
Thank you, Marletha. Hello again, everyone. I'm going to walk through our standard solicitation document. As you've heard us call it, a solicitation offer and award document. We also sometimes refer to it as an SOA document. So I'm going to walk through the various sections of this document because it does look a little bit different. It's unique to our agency, although it does contain some sections that will look familiar to you if you've responded to other federal agency solicitations. So we start with, I will mention that the board's an independent government agency. We're not bound by the federal acquisition regulations. We have our own acquisition policy that follows the spirit of the FAR. And the board's SOA, next slide, please. Thanks. The board's SOA is similar to an RFP you'd see released by FAR-based agencies for the more complex acquisition of goods and services. And we organize our SOA document by section, alphabetically, and it does have some similarities to the FAR uniform contract format. So in the SOA document and the board's document, you'll see background and informational sections, our statement of work, specific requirements and specifications for the project, submission instructions and evaluation procedures, and then we wrap up with our general contract provisions or our terms and conditions document. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so we'll start with, of course, we've got an SOA cover page, and that provides some specific deadlines for that particular solicitation. It provides contact information for the board's procurement specialist who's working on the particular solicitation. So you'll want to just, look at the cover page so you can see those dates and contact information at a glance. Then we have section A, which provides a solicitation offer and award form that's specific to the board, and offers have to make sure to complete that form in full. It has to be signed by someone who can bind your your company to a contract, and then you'll submit that SOA form in volume 1 of your proposal. We also have section B, which is information regarding price proposals. And so in section B, the board will always provide its own pricing form for offerers to complete and submit with their proposal. So you want to make sure that if you're responding to a board solicitation, that you use our standard form for the pricing that's provided with the solicitation, rather than using your own form, unless for some particular effort, we tell you that you can use your own form. But for the most part, we'll provide a pricing form specific to the solicitation. You can always add your own, add pricing sheets or additional information to the pricing form, and you're encouraged to be clear, add any information to the pricing form so that it's clear about any assumptions that you are making related to pricing for that particular solicitation. Section B will also include wage requirement information. So in the case of the construction services BOA that we're talking about today, of course, we'll include Davis-Bacon Act wage determination information in section B. Next slide, please. Thank you. Section C is where you'll find the statement of work for the particular project. And the statement of work will include background about the board's facilities or the overall intent of the solicitation from a program perspective. The statement of work will also include general requirements for performing the work. And in this case, in this particular solicitation, we'll provide more information about the task orders and how they will be awarded, any requirements for project meetings, closeout of projects, and so on. So we do encourage offers to pay particular attention to the statement of work because those requirements will transfer to any contract awarded from the solicitation. So you want to pay particular attention there and make sure that when you submit your technical proposals, you clearly demonstrate that you can meet the general requirements set forth in the statement of work. We'll be looking at the offer's ability to provide the resources that are required to meet all of those requirements in section C. Section D of our SOA document just provides some warranty information. So that's where you'll find requirements that would, again, transfer to the awarded contract, specifically around warranty durations and replacement parts requirements and that sort of thing. In section E, we have some requirements around inspection and acceptance of goods and services provided by the contractor. The board's contracting officer's representative, or we sometimes call that person a core, will be responsible for inspecting and accepting goods and services provided under the contract. So section E will include requirements for the contractor to redeliver work if required. So that's another section where you don't necessarily have to pay a lot of attention when you're submitting your proposal, but those are requirements that will be part of any awarded contract. And then section F covers requirements around contract deliverables. Again, these will apply to any resulting contract. So this would be copies of insurance certificates required by the board, any copies of warranties that might be required. And these would be specifically set forth in a task order that we would be issuing against the awarded BOA for a particular project. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, section G of the SOA provides some information that's important to pay attention to during the proposal phase. This is where we get into our rules about how you can submit your questions as an offerer, to whom you should submit your questions. And in the case of the solicitation we're talking about today, you would email your questions to Jerome Smith. His contact information will be provided in the solicitation. So we ask that all questions are submitted in writing by the deadline that's provided in the solicitation. And then the board, of course, will pull together all of the questions and work to provide responses to those questions. We'll send out a document that includes those questions and all of the answers to all of the firms that are interested in the solicitation. So again, just pay attention to the date and time that's set forth in section G of the SOA that shows the deadline for submitting those questions so that you make sure you get them in on time. And while I'm on this topic, I'll just remind everyone, I'm sure you have dealt with this before, but it's really important to keep in mind that while the solicitation is on the street or before the contracts have been awarded, you're not allowed to contact anyone except for the contract specialist about the solicitation. So while you may know other people at the board, you may meet other people on the call today, you want to make sure you direct all questions to the contract specialist. Section H, and Sonal touched on this a little bit in her part of the presentation. Section H outlines key personnel requirements for performing the work. And so we'll have minimum qualifications for those personnel set forth in Section H. We do ask that when the offers propose key personnel, we ask that those key personnel do remain on the contract for at least the first 90 days of the awarded contract, unless there's some sort of emergency situation that would require substitution of key personnel. And in the event the contractor would be requesting substitution of key personnel, that must be submitted in writing to the board for approval. Next slide, please. Okay. Section I is an important part of the SOA document. I encourage you to really make sure you take a good look at Section I when you receive a solicitation from the board. That's where we outline the process that we will use to evaluate and score the technical and price proposals. We will include the technical factors and their points or weighting in that section. So typically, we will evaluate the offer's experience, proposed key personnel, past performance, and then of course we'll evaluate price. So in Section I, you'll also find the factors we use to determine whether an offeror is responsible. These factors would include review of financial statements, confirmations provided in the proposal related to taxes having been paid, and any disclosure of outstanding legal issues and that sort of thing. So again, I encourage you to make a note that Section I in the board solicitations is an important section to really make sure you read and understand as you're working on your proposal. Section J of the SOA covers contract administration. So that's where you'll find the contract type. That's where we will indicate the number of option years for the resulting contracts. As Sonal mentioned, we plan to have a base period for these awarded contracts plus 4 option years that could be exercised at the board's discretion. And that's pretty standard for most of the board's contracts for ongoing type services. Section J also outlines the invoicing procedures the board follows for their contracts, and also will list the contract management personnel along with email addresses. So our chief acquisition officer, our assistant director, and so on and so forth. And we'll list those people and their contact information in that section. Section J also outlines the roles and responsibilities for the contracting officer representative who will be helping to administer the contract. Next slide, please. Okay. Section K is a form that you would pull out of your SOA document and fill out and sign and submit with volume 1 of your proposal. So Section K, we sometimes call it reps inserts. It's probably very similar to another type of form that you've seen in other federal government solicitations. So this is where you would indicate things like whether your firm is a small business. You would indicate your acceptance period, the acceptance period for the quote. You would provide affirmative action compliance and compliance with the Equal Employment Opportunity Program. So, and that's a form we look for in volume 1 of your proposal when you submit it. So please make sure to complete that in full and have it signed by someone who can bind your firm to an offer and submit it back to us. Okay, Section L is another very, very important part of our solicitation, and I'll specifically call your attention to Section L12 because that's where we go into great detail about the requirements for submission of proposals. And we talk there about the different volumes that will make up your proposal and the requirements for each of those volumes. So again, that's where you'll see, even if we mention mandatory requirements in Section C, we'll copy them and list them in Section L12 also, because you want to make sure that it's covered. We want to make sure it's covered in as many places as it should be. So again, please pay attention to Section L12. You can use it as sort of a checklist as you're putting your proposal together. This section also will detail the method by which proposals are to be submitted to the board. These days, typically it's by email. You want to make sure each of the volumes is provided to us separately and that there's no pricing information included in your technical proposal. The pricing information should all be kept separate in the price proposal because the technical and price proposals are evaluated by separate teams initially, and so we don't want to mix up that information. So you'll always want to make sure you attach each volume of the proposal to your email as a separate attachment, and usually you'll be submitting those by email. But section L12 will provide all the specifics about the due date, the time the proposals are due, and to whom you should send the proposals. So this is an area where, if you have any questions at all when you read the solicitation, especially about this section, you would submit those questions to Jerome, the contract specialist. And now we are at the end of our SOA document, which is section M. Section M provides the board's general contract provisions, and these provisions are standard to many of our contracts, particularly the more complex contracts or ongoing types of services. So lots of the clauses in section M are provisions that the board is required to follow by law, and we're required to have our contractors comply with them by law. So you'll find provisions on indemnification, confidentiality, how we handle audits, terminations, disputes, and more. This is also a place where we go into more detail about the board's subcontracting requirements. So the board does have a mission to include small businesses, or we call them covered companies, as much as possible in our contracting efforts. And you will hear Marletha talk about this a lot too, where we also want to increase opportunities for women-owned and minority-owned companies. But the board's subcontracting program requires that for many of our efforts, the non-covered companies or the large businesses will need to submit subcontracting plans that show how they can meet certain goals. And the board's goals, which will be set forth in the solicitation that we're talking about today, the goals would be for small businesses or covered companies to perform work valued at least 23% of the total contract price. And I should say we're really talking here, since these will be BOAs or IDIQ contracts, we'll be talking really specifically for the subcontracting at the task order level. One of the next goals is for women-owned small businesses to perform work valued at least 5% of the contract price. Small disadvantaged businesses would perform work valued at least 5% of the contract price. Hub-zone small businesses would perform work valued at least 3% of the contract price. And then we capture the service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses at least 3% of the contract price. So for the task orders, we would be asking for those subcontracting plans and then the reports on how the company has achieved those goals throughout the performance of that task order. So I know I shared a lot, and a lot of it will make more sense when you actually see the SOA document. And of course, we welcome any questions during the solicitation process or before, but that wraps it up for my part.
Well, thank you, Kristen. We would like to thank Kristen for that wonderful dissecting of the ABCs of the board solicitation offer and award. This information will be very helpful to you when responding to the board's SOA. There were some key takeaways that Kristen mentioned. First and foremost, we want you to communicate only to Jerome Smith. Jerome Smith is your contact for this solicitation, and we will provide his email address a little later in the webcast. Also, pay very close attention to Section I. Section I is a very important section of the solicitation, as well as Section L, L12, very important dates in Section L. So those were three key takeaways that I heard Kristen mention that we really need to pay closely attention to when responding to the board solicitation. I know she provided a lot of information, but we will have this information on the board's YouTube channel. You can find this webcast. You can go back and reference it. Just give us a couple of days to put it out there. And to learn more about our acquisition process, we would like for you to visit our website. And if you have not already, please register your company so that you can get more information regarding our upcoming acquisitions, industry days, and while you're out there, take a look at the acquisition forecast as well. The forecast will provide additional upcoming procurement opportunities, as well as provide you our procurement team's contact information. We want you to stay engaged with us. We want you to collaborate with us because we know we are all transitioning out of these challenging times. So we want you to know the board is committed to helping you emerge and get back to a sense of normalcy. So again, thank you, Sonal and Kristen. And at this time, we will open it up for questions and answers. So I will bring in all the panel come in, and we will start the questions and answers. So please put your questions in the chat box, and I will go now to the chat box and retrieve the questions, and we will start the questions and answers. So let's see. I'm going to start here. The first question. Hello, Jerome. I'm a service provider for builder and development. We create 3D renderings and animation for the unbuilt project. How can we connect with the builders or developers to work with them, or should I connect directly with you? Are we all on? So let me look at that question again. I think basically the question was being asked, someone has a rendering and animation of an unbuilt project, and I'm not real sure if you want to connect with builders or developers, but I think you will have to work with them directly. With regards to our construction services project, I don't think we have a need for that. But if you would like, if I didn't answer that question to your satisfaction, please email me, and I can follow up and have a better understanding of what you're asking. The next question is, what is a BOA? Does this mean a DC cert company or located in the DMV? Kristen, would you like to tell the audience what's a BOA?
If I can find my mute button.
Okay.
Probably, I think you probably posted that question before we answered it during the presentation. But a BOA is what we call a basic ordering agreement at the board. It's very similar to an IDIQ type contract. So we award a base contract with agreed upon rates, and then we issue task orders when we have specific projects that are ready for either bid, or we might rotate those task order awards among the BOA holders.
Okay, and we have another question. I specialize in video related support. The studio on the first floor of the FRB building is a project we built in 2014. Is there any work of this nature, lighting, grid work, curtains, or design? Sonal, do you know at this time exactly the types of task orders that we may have coming up?
For the upcoming year, we don't really have anything related to like a studio per se. We may have various projects that do require specialized lighting depending on artwork or such things, but not anticipated. Feel free to submit your information, and we will definitely hang on to that information as a specific task order arises.
Okay, thank you, Sonal. Douglas, today is your lucky day. One of my managers of contract, Lisa Boschil, just pinged me to tell me she has an upcoming opportunity for video services or something along those lines. So if you would just shoot me a quick email and I will follow up with Lisa regarding the acquisition and connect the two, and hopefully, we can start the collaboration and dialogue. Okay, let's see here. Next question. We have a construction communication and coordination app that may be useful. What is the best way to introduce such an innovation to the Federal Reserve System for consideration? I would like for you to just shoot me an email and we can have a vendor meeting and you can show me how this app perhaps can add value to what we are currently doing. And once we go over all the details regarding the app, then I can probably connect you with the appropriate project manager to see if they will be interested in that. But we're always looking for new innovation, new ways to support our mission. So yes, I'll be more than happy to meet with you to look at the construction communication and coordination app. Let's see, additional questions. I think you guys asked for Jerome's email address. That is coming up shortly. Some additional questions came in. When do you expect the SOA to go to market? Jerome?
Yes, we're looking to release a solicitation during the third quarter, with the award being for January of 2022.
Okay. The next question is, do you have an estimated dollar value per task order? I think this would be a good question for Sonal. Sonal, do you have an estimated dollar value?
No, we do not. They may range from, $100,000 or below, or maybe up to over 500,000. It just depends on the scopes and as the projects arise.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Sonal. Also, one of my contract specialists just pinged me and said they also have a studio acquisition coming up. So yes, you guys, this is why it's important to go to our website, take a look at our forecast. While today we're actually going over construction services, but we have lots of acquisitions that we are actually purchasing goods and services for. So if you go to our website, you will find the acquisition forecast along with the inside the acquisition forecast. We list the expiring contracts. We also provide you the contact person's information to reach out to them directly. But if you can't find what you're looking for in the acquisition forecast, you guys can always email me and I can research and do market research for you to find out exactly, if we have something coming up in that area. So we do have a few more questions coming in. This may be another question for Jerome. When do you anticipate the award to be made and the first task order to be issued? I'm not for sure if Sonal covered that already or not, but Jerome?
Sure, I believe someone covered it earlier. Again, we'll be releasing the solicitation during the third quarter, and based upon those requirements, we should start issuing task orders somewhere during the beginning of the year or as it becomes required.
Okay. A few more questions. Sonal, I believe this is best for you. While I know you listed some of the task orders, the type of work, can you speak to the complexity of the work? I know the work typically is 1-year base with 4-year options. So in the span of a 5-year period, can you speak to the complexity of the type of task orders you've done in the past on this contract?
Sure. We've done simple painting projects. I think, as I stated before, we've done complicated security access projects that include speed lanes, secure revolving doors, secure entry, integrated security surveillance systems, office reconfigurations, multiple bathroom renovations. So I mean, it's a wide gamut. Anything that service that we would need to support our federal office building, pretty much. is the goal. I do know of a couple of projects that are coming up in 2022, may include some HVAC reconfigurations. We're heavy into BAS and controls and ensuring that we are able to manage our buildings. Those are some of the things that I think would be coming up.
Okay, thank you, Sonal. Additional questions have come in. One question is from Mr. Curtis. Will this be a full and open RFP? Yes, this will be a full and open RFP. The next question is, does the board have an anticipated task order size or range appropriate values of the task orders to be issued through the contract? And I think we may have spoken to that. It varies, and it just depends on the scope of work.
That's right.
Yeah, and I think a few more have come in. They want to know, Mr. Smith would like to know, will the attendance list be posted? No, we have no plans of posting the attendees. Another question, will the board require the BOA contractors to submit key personnel for each task order? Or will the board contractors submit key personnel for the board contract term? So Sonal, basically, are you looking for key personnel for each order, or are we looking for key personnel for the life of the entire contract over the 1 year 4-option base?
It is a combination of the two. So we are looking for a key project manager and maybe a superintendent that would be badged to be able to manage task orders as they're issued, because there is a process. The badging process takes some time. So we would look for some key personnel to be dedicated to the project that can escort subcontractors. As far as key personnel for a particular task order, depending on the nature of the task order, there may be some key personnel that we require that be included with the overall team. But it's best to have a project manager and superintendent that can manage multiple projects for the board to ensure that any schedule requirements for a contractor can be met.
Okay, great. A couple more questions have just come in. The board typically hosts a vendor outreach fair. Do you have any plans on hosting that event in the future? We are definitely exploring the opportunity. As you know, the pandemic came in 2020. We actually had it scheduled for then. We are exploring our options for the vendor outreach fair. We are monitoring the situation with the pandemic, but first and foremost, our employees are our number one priority. Safety is our number one priority for our employees. So we're just actually monitoring that situation. And as time evolves, we will definitely look and keep you posted. Typically what we do when we have an industry day or an outreach of any kind, we invite the vendors in our database. So please make sure you register your company in the database. So when we do have the vendor outreach fair, you would definitely be included. We miss seeing each of you in person. So that's why we're hosting these webcasts, so that we can continue to provide you access, opportunity, and engagement with the Federal Reserve. And another question just came in. The board has major construction projects in the works. Outside of the BOA, how can we find information about your construction projects on C Street? Kristen, would you like to answer that one?
Sure, I can take a crack at that. Well, we have a solicitation on the street right now for the renovation of the board's Eccles building and 1951 Constitution building. So that solicitation has been released. That is in process. So as Sonal mentioned, we expect the sort of like the other projects to maintain the board buildings to be handled under these task orders.
Thank you, Kristen. As we mentioned, let's see, I think I may have another question. Let me check real quick. Yes. The question is, would it be possible to receive today's presentation via email? Yes, we can make that possible, but also you can find the presentation out on the board's YouTube channel as well. But yes, we can definitely make the presentation available via email. Another question, is the evaluation going to be based solely on the past TO, I'm assuming task orders, other construction experience as well? Sonal, is the evaluation going to be based solely on, I guess, past performance or other construction experience as well?
It's going to be a combination. We are reviewing a lot of those evaluation criteria. So please, when the solicitation gets final, you'll be able to respond to it. We're trying to make sure it's flexible enough and broad enough to give everyone an opportunity for especially if it's a smaller business, for growth. And we're in the process of just evaluating all of them. But some of those mandatories, as far as corporate requirements and task order requirements, it's going to be a blend. Hopefully I answered the questions. If not, ping us again.
I'm sorry. I was smiling. I'm reading the next questions. I think there's several more questions. Is there a maximum limit on the number of task orders that will be issued?
No.
Okay. And let's see, can you provide a link to your current contracting opportunities, please? I'm on your site and where are the current solicitations posted for review. So when you go to the board's website, go to About the Fed, you get to Procurement, and you will see a section called Procuring the Future. Procuring the Future is where you can find the acquisition forecast that will provide you the additional contracting opportunities that are coming up. And I wanted to go back a minute and speak a little bit about, Kristen talked about some construction projects, the C Street construction project question. We will have additional outreach efforts with those projects. Again, register your company in our database. And as those opportunities become available, we will host with the Prime outreach event so that you can have an opportunity to participate in the subcontracting opportunity. But that's more to come. Stay tuned and just make sure you're registered in our database. So right now, do we have any more questions coming in? Okay, we do like to keep these to 60 minutes, but Sonal being our project manager, will you just share with the audience just a little bit of your expectation to those who will get an award? Once they get an award with the board, your expectation regarding performance, what we look for, the quality of work we look for in partnering with a business to provide you construction services. Can you just share your expectations?
The expectation is when we have a BOA with a contractor, it's not a one-year project contract. It is a 5-year relationship. And we hope to maintain long-term relationships with our contractor because it's time and money on your end as well as from our end, let alone getting the badges and accessing our buildings, getting to know how we work. It's a process. So we definitely look for long-term engagement with our contractors, especially our BOA holders. The projects I say is a broad range, and needs come up as issues come up in the field, or maybe there's an operational failure. We do lean heavily on our contractors to help us get through those events. So I may sound extremely broad or non-committal, but I'm trying to make sure you understand that we're just looking for a strong relationship with the general contractor that can support us through all of these different changes and growth that the board's going to experience within the next 5 years, and also routine maintenance projects. Is that helpful, Marletha? Or would you like me to elaborate?
No, that's very helpful. we want you to know that we are looking for partners. We are looking for long-term relationships. We're looking for people who take pride in their work. If you're performing a service at the board and you run into an issue, communicate with us. Tell us what's going on. You know, don't drop the ball when you're working on a project and we just find out by happenstance that something occurred. We want you to talk to us. We like I said, we're looking for long-term partnerships. And I just wanted Sona to just speak to the expectations. Another question came in, is this solicitation, just for small business? Let me just go back to it and see what it says here. Do the companies need to be SBE, MBE to participate? No, this is a full and open solicitation. However, I will tell you, we like to use our GC BOA for our small and medium-sized construction companies to participate. And this way they get first hands-on experience in doing real construction work with the Federal Reserve. So we like to provide those opportunities to our small and medium-sized firms when it comes to construction. While we do have great relationships with our really, really large companies, we do lean a little toward having this BOA for those companies. Another question, is the board open to a different HVAC controls besides Siemens and JCI? Sonal, I believe that's a question for you.
The board has moved to a standardized control system, just because it's being implemented in a recently renovated building. So as far as open to capabilities, we'll definitely submit information through Marlene, and we'll definitely take a look at it.
Okay, I think we have one last question here. Sonal, let's see. How many companies will be awarded the BOA? Sonal, how many BOAs do you plan to award?
You don't have a number planned as far as total awards, but our limit is going to be 10, no more than 10. I think 10 is, and we'll try to work around trying to get the most qualified candidates and companies to give them the best experience. We want to make it worth their while. If they're going to hold a BOA, we don't want it to be stagnant for them either. So it has to be open win.
Sona, another question has come in. I think this question is for you. While we've hosted this webcast today, will you do a pre-proposal meeting or walkthrough or anything of the 4 buildings that you identified that we will have the work?
More than likely, we will not have a walkthrough for the BOA itself. As task orders are identified, we will definitely have pre-proposal walkthroughs and introductions. I anticipate that depending on some of the BOA holders, once a BOA is awarded, we will have some type of a meeting, whether it's virtual, depending on the nature of this COVID pandemic. But we will have kind of a kickoff just to kind of introduce ourselves, the process for the task orders especially to our newer BOA holders that we may have, so they understand a little bit more of the process.
Okay, great. Jerome, as the contract specialist, do you have any final remarks? Your expectation as the contract specialist, the man of the hour, the man of the next 1 year for option base, the connection to the people on this contract.
Again, I just want to thank everyone for joining the webcast, and my expectation is just for everyone to try to be straightforward and as honest as possible when I'm providing the solicitations, and understand that I am the direct contact, and I'm here to help you. And I think if we work with each other, we can be successful.
Wonderful, thank you, Kristen, manager of contracts. Any final words, expectations going forward? Kristen?
Thank you all for attending today. And as Jerome said, just let us know what questions you have. Stay in touch, and we look forward to possibly working with you.
Wonderful. So I would like to thank our amazing panel for a fantastic job today, folks. Let's give them a hand. I don't know if you have some hand clapping on that WebEx. Let's see those hand claps. I'm just going to clap my hands here. Thank you, guys, and thank you so very much. And I hope to the audience, this webcast has been very informative for you. To be successful in the bidding process, I encourage you to follow the key steps that were highlighted here today. And again, this webcast will be available for you on the board's YouTube channel for reference. And we want you to know the Federal Reserve is committed to supplier diversity and remains committed to assisting small businesses during these challenging times. We want you to be successful in winning contracts with the Federal Reserve because when you win contracts, you create jobs. You create jobs within the communities you live, within the communities we serve, therefore promoting a healthy economy and price stability. Again, thank you for joining our webcast. Stay safe and have a good evening. Goodbye.